Jayden Quaintance is the biggest question mark in college basketball. Let's lock in and find out why.
You are Locked On NBA Draft with no ceilings. Your daily podcast on the future stars of the NBA. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On NBA Draft with no ceilings. Thank you as always for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if that $5 bet hits, you get $300 in bonus bets that you can use across the app. If you're interested in that, head to FanDuel.com to get started today. My name's Albert Gim of No Ceilings, and I'm joined as always with my co-host, PhD in the pick and roll and pepperoni pizza, Corey Tulaba. Corey, how are you doing? How's life? More importantly, talk to us about your favorite sparkling water.
Perrier. That's a callback joke in the biz, folks, from our Wednesday episode where we talked about Poland Spring. Love a good sparkling water.
Yeah.
You know, makes you feel fancy. You know,
Me
the
too.
restaurant, the waiter comes over. You know, are you good with tap or would you like a sparkling? Makes you feel real fancy.
Yeah, you send that tap to another table. You give me that. Give me the fancy stuff. But Corey, we're talking about a very fancy prospect today. We're talking about Jayden Quaintance, who's going to be playing his trade in Lexington for the Kentucky Wildcats this season after spending his freshman season in Arizona State playing for the Sun Devils. Corey, I'm really excited for this episode. A guy who is a returner, but is younger than a lot of freshmen. A guy who's going to be super duper young, but has a lot of really intriguing talent on both ends of the floor. And so, Corey, let's get into the lab. Let's hear some of the essentials on wow, I almost said Isaiah Harwell, Jayden Quaintance.
Yeah, like you mentioned, he is returning. He's a sophomore, and he was not draft eligible last season as a freshman. He was too young. And if he was, he probably would have been a top 10 pick last year. Currently, he's number 9 on the first No Ceilings big board that is yet to be released. So, you know, spoiler alert there. But interestingly enough, he's listed at 6'10 and a half, 255, where last year for Arizona State, he was listed at 6'9", 225. So they're projecting a significant amount of weight gain and a growth spurt, which at his age is not inconceivable. And I am more likely to buy that he is now 6'10 and a half versus 30 pounds in the offseason with a knee injury that ended his season. So I am a little skeptical of the weight gain, especially because he doesn't look significantly bigger in some of the pictures. But this is a guy who, you know, crazy physical tools, rumored 7'5" wingspan per ESPN. And as a sophomore, he will be 18.9 years old on draft night. Pretty wild stuff. He played 24 games for Arizona State last year. And, you know, I was wondering, I'm like, why would he go to Arizona State? He was initially committed to Kentucky, decommitted after Calipari left, ended up going to Arizona State. And I was like, oh, number 1 party school. Looked it up. They're now ranked like 65th. Not even a party school anymore. So that NIL bag must have hit like coffee in the morning. But he averaged 9.4 points, 7.9 rebounds, 1.5 assists to 1.9 turnovers, 1.1 steals, 2.6 blocks for Arizona State. As a freshman, 52.5, 18.8, 47.9. Shooting splits, 54.2. Effective field goal, 53.6. True shooting, 6.5 BPM, 18.6 PER. Some standout numbers, 2.2 steal percentage with a 9.8 block percentage. So, you know, this is a kid with a really interesting statistical profile. He does have that knee injury, but current events, Coach Pope said, and I quote, "The one thing I can tell you is he is like breaking every record known to humankind in terms of his rehab. It's unbelievable." So hopefully he returns healthy and sooner than we otherwise would hope.
I mean, Corey, I saw that quote too, but I also like how Coach Pope was also like, "We're also going to be extremely careful."
Yeah.
With with his return. It's like he's breaking all these human records, but at the same time, we're gonna be careful, which I
Yeah.
like, ultimately, because at the end of the day, I think Coach Pope and that staff, they're looking at Jayden as a guy who can come in and be a real contributor to that team, right? And whether that's in the middle of the season or more importantly at the end of the season, I think they're trying to really ramp him up and put him in a position that when he gets back to the floor, that he's the best version of himself, right?
Yeah.
That he's feeling great, and then he can do everything that he wants to do on the floor. And so, yeah, Corey, he's a really interesting prospect. And obviously, the headliner talking points with him are going to be about his defense, about his age, about the measurables and all that stuff. But we run our podcast the same every single time, and we're going to start with his offense. And so, Corey, when it comes to Jayden's offensive game, I think what I want to kind of start off by saying is that it's pretty simple, right? At this point in his development, you're not looking for him to do a wide range of things, a plethora of things, right? He's a guy that you right now at this stage of his development, you want to keep things relatively simple with him. But even in that simplicity, I do think there is some nuance and there is some real talent and things that he's very good at. Some of the things that I did want to highlight is I thought he had really soft hands. I
Mm.
thought, whether it was a hard pass, a lob pass over the top, whatever it may be, he showed real ability to catch the ball well inside and use his body to finish around the rim. He's a guy that used his athletic tools and strength and frame to his advantage when he needed to. Um, oh, I have no idea what just happened there. Okay, that was weird with my camera. But in terms of his overall offensive game, as I mentioned, as simple as it is, there are some areas where you're like, oh, he could be interesting in the future.
His strengths are simple, but Arizona State had no problem letting him explore the studio space last year.
There it is. There was some experimentation, but even when you went over his essentials, Corey, there were some red flags,
Yeah,
right? There
I'd
were
say
some
so.
real. If you're shooting free throws under 50%, that's a red flag. That's
Yep.
something that we want to talk about, right? His 3-point shooting on very, very, very small volume, but wasn't the best. However, when you turn on the film, you kind of go, well, maybe there's more to the numbers,
Yeah.
right? And maybe there is a better shooter than what he was able to show in his freshman season. And so overall, Corey, I think the message I'm trying to relay here is that as simple as his offensive game is, there is potential for more. There is
Yeah.
potential for some more interesting stuff. And so I'll hand it over to you, Corey. Talk to us about Jayden's offensive game.
Yeah, strengths 69% at the rim overall, and in the half court as a finisher. So very efficient near the rim. And over his overall efficiency was pretty poor for a guy who I think projects to be a center. So let's find more ways to keep him around the basket. He had 34 dunks in 24 games, 20 in the half court, quick second jump on offensive rebounds, really good offensive rebounder. It didn't have as many reps as a pick and roll dive man as I wish that he did. Part of that is him, because he didn't always make good contact on his screens. And in order to use a screen, sometimes you have to have the screener actually make contact with your man. Other times he was preferring to pop in those scenarios. But he's the shooting, like you said, like you watch him and you go, all right, his upper body form is not completely broken. He might have huge hands, which keep the ball pretty palmy. It's very upper body heavy. He doesn't have a ton of lower body. That's maybe one of the reasons why I think his free throw percentage wasn't great. In my notes, I refer to it as ghastly. I mean, 47.9%. 30% of his shot attempts were classified as jumpers per synergy this year. So this is a guy who could not hit threes. He shot 19%, I believe it was, from three. He was 22.5% on catch and shoot attempts, sub 50 from three. It looks okay, and that's great. I don't want to see him shoot a single three next year until he shoots 60% from the free throw line. I don't care that he's willing to take them. That's cool. Stop Stop taking the mid-range stuff. In the Florida game, he opened the game trying to take Condon off the bounce, got walled off, and then settled for a contested step back from like 19 feet with 16 seconds on the clock. Cut that out. Stop it. I don't want to see it. This is not a Karl Anthony Towns situation where there is this underlying shooting talent. You have to hit free throws before, like, if I was a trainer, I'd be like, bro, you are not attempting a three in this gym until you get it down from the free throw line. What are we doing? And he better come back hitting his free throws because he's got a knee injury. So what are you going to work on during that time? You got to work on your shooting. So I'm interested to see how that plays out because the efficiency is disgusting because of his free throw attempts. Now, he was supposed to be a high school senior last year. So he played, in the Big 12, meaningful college basketball and was productive. So I don't want to, completely write that off, but the shooting's got to stop so he can get to areas of the floor where he is much more effective because he's really interesting, up in that the perimeter area. I still think he could be effective up there without shooting threes because he's going to be really good as a DHO operator.
Yes.
Like he's a capable ball handler. Like he tries to get fancy and he's got a little too much dip on his chip sometimes, but he's capable enough. And I think that'll shine on like DHO keepers where he can just use his athleticism, his tools to, straight line drive to the rim instead of trying to like cross guys up and go between his legs like he was prone to do sometimes. And then he would lose the ball and turn it over because in the DHO from the perimeter, he makes some sick passes, like really interesting stuff as a playmaker. And I want to see that as the means in which, in combination with like him making more contact and being more physical as a screener to free guys up, because if guys are just going to sag off him, then if he makes good contact in these DHOs, then guys are going to walk into clean threes if guys are just sitting in a deep, deep drop. So he could still be effective out there and force guys to come up and play more at the level because of his playmaking, because of his ability to attack. He could still be unpredictable without the shot. So look, it's cool that he shot them. Sometimes it looks fine. The numbers say otherwise, even if it's low sample. But the free throw percentage got to improve so we could get excited about all this other cool stuff that he does.
Yep. Like I said, Corey, bright red flags when it comes to his shooting, right? And I think you made some really fair points about, areas that he's got to work on. And I think another thing that I really agree with that you mentioned, good passer, man. And I feel like if he's going to be either your sole big or like a dual big type of situation, his ability to make reads the way that he can, and he can be like a pretty fast thinker as well. I think that's really interesting. And he had some really nice interior passing chops too. There are a couple times where he made some really nice passes off to the big. And the too much dip on his chip, I think it was the game against Arizona in Arizona. There was one where he faced up and took a couple dribbles and then like took like a fadeaway on the baseline. And you could see like the crowd was shocked that he took the shot. And then when he went in, they were like really excited about it. That kind of tells you all you need to know about the type of shooter that he is right now at this current stage of his development. But there's a lot to be interested in, Corey. He's skilled. He is skilled. Yeah. It's just he needs refinement. And I think he needs a more solid base is, I think, what both of us are saying.
Insane poster in that Arizona game.
Oh, nasty. I think that was on VSAR, right?
Yeah. Like took him off the bounce from the perimeter and just
nasty.
Yeah, nasty stuff. He's intriguing. He's got intriguing stuff. Yeah. To the too much dip on your chip, you look at his assist to turnover ratio and you go, oh, maybe a low field guy. But similar to our breakdown of Chris Sinek, like a lot of his turnovers come up when he gets too much dip on his chip and he's trying to create with the ball in his hand because he's not reading the help rotating over and he's just like dribbling into dudes. I don't think he's going to do that in Kentucky. I think they're more talented. They have better guard play. I am interested to see how he looks when he comes back with Malachi Marino and playing in those double big lineups.
True. Malachi Marino, another guy that we think is pretty interesting as a passer as well. So there could be some fun things going on there. But Corey, as interesting as he is, with some real question marks on the offensive side of the ball, there are some things on the defensive end that we're a little bit more confident in. And so we'll get into his defense right after the break. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Playing Prize Picks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley rushing for a touchdown, and you're in the game. Me living here in Southern California, I have to rely on Prize Picks. I use Prize Picks all the time, whether I'm pressing the demon button or the goblin button and taking a chance on a 6-leg parlay. I don't know. You sometimes you have to take a shot and see if you can hit. But the most fun thing about Prize Picks is that it's simple to use. There are a lot of good payouts, a lot of good odds that you can look at, and it's just like the interface is fun too. So I think having an app like Prize Picks makes watching sports more fun. And so ultimately, download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you place your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 in lineups after you make your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right, Corey, we're talking about defense.
Let's go.
For Jayden Quaintance, right?
Yep.
And this is the side of the ball where I think you and I are going to have more confidence in what he can offer on this end, especially like once he gets to the NBA level. This is where you're going to feel a little bit safer with him. And so talking about his defense, Corey, before I hand it over to you, there are just a couple of things that I wanted to mention. The way he moves for a guy his size, I think is pretty special. It is very interesting. Very, very fun to watch. His lateral mobility, talk about the hip stuff, his length and the disruption he brings with that length, with the strength and size that he has for his age, I think make him very, very interesting. I think potentially one day, Corey, he could be a guy who can just guard literally anybody in the NBA.
Yeah.
Could be his potential. And so I'll hand it over to you, Corey. What were some of your thoughts on his defensive game?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's crazy because he is so young and he was doing this as a freshman, and he was, the only reason that Arizona State was even remotely watchable was because of Jayden and his ability to guard in such an interesting way. So we're gonna be very positive here because it is mostly positive, and his tools are just so ridiculously insane that for a guy his size, the mobility is special. Not many guys have his combination of being able to protect the rim and then also guard on the perimeter. We mentioned at the top, 2.2 steal percentage, 9.8 block percentage. Special stuff. Not many guys in college basketball can do both of those things. He blocks shots with both hands. He's scheme versatile. He plays in a drop. He hard hedges and recovers and is able to get back to his man while going deep out on the perimeter because of that mobility. He played the top of a 1-3-1 half court press. Like he can play, he can switch. He could do so much. But you can also see the youth in his game on the defensive end often because his physical tools have always allowed him to, I think, rely on the physical tools. And I think that he reads the game defensively really well. But I think that there are things fundamentally that he needs to clean up that will make him go from like a great defender to like a superb defender or superb to, whatever. Like I think he's where he's at. This is all very normal stuff for a freshman to go through, especially one that was a reclass, like at the same age as a high school senior, wasn't even old enough to enter the draft. But he tries to block everything. So, and he doesn't foul as much as somebody who does try to block everything, but he can get jumpy. His feet can get very fidgety on closeouts. I think that, I was watching Mighty Ducks 3 the other day, and there's something that always resonates with me because the coach always, he wants the team to be defensively focused. And he says to Charlie Conway, the captain of the team, or not at that point, Josh Jackson, he said he's got a guy on a breakaway with him guarding one-on-one, and he says, make him make the first move. And I think sometimes he doesn't like dictate when he's playing cat and mouse. He just kind of waits, and like if the guard is going to shoot, he'll try to contest it, and if the big gets a pass, he'll try to recover, but he's not necessarily trying to dictate to make the guard make the decision. He's kind of just waiting for something to happen, and I think because of his length and his mobility, he could be a little more aggressive in those spaces, trying to like swipe at the ball, or even like if he's faking, just to get the guard to kind of make tougher choices, because he can recover back to the big in that cat and mouse. So I want him to make the first move more often in those kind of situations. He needs to get lower when he's guarding the post. He just stays very upright and uses his length, and he's so long and he's so good at it that, you know, I get it, especially when he was playing lower levels of competition. But I would love for him to get more, you know, the low man wins. That's the saying defensively, and just get that steady base, push guys off their spot instead of relying more on contesting. But I mean, his hands are so active. I mean, guys try to enter like the ball in the post, he pokes it away from behind, from and not even like, you know, fouling and reaching over. I mean, it's normal. I think the game looked so fast for him on that end too. But his tools are so impressive, and I think he still thinks the game at a high level, even if the game was fast, that like he was still so impactful defensively for a team that didn't even have a good defensive infrastructure. So it's like, what is he going to look like with another year of seasoning in a better system with better players? You know, I have questions. Obviously, like he's going to come back in the middle of the season off of an injury, so there's going to be some grace period there. You know, that transition might not be as like, oh, he's taking the leap that we want to see. It might not be as clear because of that, but man, he's got every tool. And if the weight gain and the height, if that's real, then that's going to solve a lot of the issues as well.
Corey, I think you kind of encapsulated his defense perfectly. I love everything that you said, because the reason why he's so tantalizing is because he's got all the tools and he plays hard on this end, and he's got all the high end stuff that you're looking for, but also like he's interesting and intriguing, and there are question marks because he's still really young and there's still things that he's gotten tightened up. And then, you know, him being in Kentucky with that coaching staff, and then wherever he ends up in the NBA, it's going to be a journey. He's not walking into the NBA as Draymond Green, right? He's going to walk into the NBA with a huge, massive ceiling in terms of what he can be on this end of the floor, but it's going to take some time. And so overall, Corey, I think this is kind of going to be his calling card, even on the next level. But if you kind of combined, you know, the intrigue on offense plus what, you know, the really high level stuff he has on defense, I think he's going to remind us of some really fun NBA guys. And so I'm really excited to get into those comps after the break. The NFL season, we're in the thick of it, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. So that's right. If you pick a bet, you put $5 down, and if that bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to unlock and use all across the app. As you guys know, right now is a really exciting time with the baseball playoffs going on, NFL going on. We've got NBA sniffing around right around the corner. With football, obviously a lot of exciting stuff. We just found out this week that the Bengals are adding Joe Flacco. Maybe that does something to them. Maybe they've seen enough of Jake Browning, and maybe you get excited and you go, let me put some money down on a Jamar Chase touchdown or a T. Higgins, or maybe this unlocks Chase Brown in some way. I don't know. There are a lot of different options out there, but if you're going to get spicy and you're going to put some money down, do it on FanDuel. Put the $5 down, win $300 in bonus bets. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Our pod today is also sponsored by Quo, formerly known as OpenPhone. One of the tools that help you make a big difference, a huge difference for business owners, is Quo, formerly OpenPhone. It's the same great business phone system you've heard me talk about before, just with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call could potentially be money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or your computer, so you don't have to worry about carrying 2 phones or relying on a landline. Um, we really love Quo here, formerly known as Open Phone, because it lets your team share one number and collaborate on calls and texts, almost like a shared inbox. So no customer gets left hanging. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo. Get started free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedonnba. That's QUO.com/lockedonnba. And if you've got existing numbers with another service, Quo will port them over at no extra charge. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. All right, we are back. But this is what our listeners have been waiting for, Corey.
Let's
This is
get
what
it.
we've been waiting for. We know you guys are excited for this. We're going to talk about some comps. And I think with Jayden Quaintance, man, because of the ceiling and the age and the measurables and the athleticism and whatever you want to talk about, you can start to dream a little bit here, Corey. I think there are some strong low-end comps that I think we're going to agree on, but some higher-end comps too that maybe he gets there. Maybe there's a 1% chance, 2% chance that he gets there, but some guys that I think we're very interested in talking about. So, Corey, you first. Give us some of your comps for Jayden Quaintance.
All right. So I had thought of a couple of these guys, and honestly, my comps are all like fairly high end because they're all NBA players. Maybe not high end as far as MVPs and whatnot, but I thought of a couple of these guys. And then I went to our friends at Bar Torvik because Jayden has a college season, and I did a little query, and a few of these guys actually popped up with him in this query that I ran. So because I thought that his steal and block percentages were, pretty unique to have both, I went with a steal percentage of 1.5, a block percentage of 9, BPM of 5, offensive rebound percentage of 10, and an assist percentage of 10. Now, there were, 20, 25 guys in the list that popped up. I cut the list down to freshmen because, A, he was a freshman, and B, he was a young freshman. So it's not even a clear one-to-one comparison. Here's the list. Jayden Quaintance, Joel Embiid, Robert Williams, and Jalen Duren. And so the guys that I had thought of before this query were Jalen Duren and Robert Williams. And then I had also thought of Bam Adebayo as maybe like his ultimate high-end comp. But Jalen Duren was another guy who reclassed and was super young for his class. He came out during his freshman year because he was draft eligible. But, had the passing flashes, had the strength, the length, right? Questionable shooter, but maybe one day was the thought, right? And then Robert Williams, another talented guy. He ended up staying for his sophomore year as well. So I think he's going to be like a year and a half older than Jayden on draft night after that sophomore year. So it's not a clear 1-to-1, but Robert Williams had a strong freshman season as well. So, and I think stylistically, these guys who could pass a little, they're garbage men. Maybe they can create a little bit, but you don't really want them to be doing that. Finishers, defenders, impactful though, and young. So yeah, those are the names that I kind of came up with.
Awesome. Just because I also had Robert Williams, one of the first guys that came to mind for me, because everything that you said. A couple guys that are also like my lowest end comps for him, like a Precious Achiuwa. A guy who in the NBA has tried to expand his offensive game a little bit, but you feel best about him when you keep things simple, but also is very influential on the defensive side of the ball, can guard multiple positions, huge hands, great wingspan, good mobility. So always interesting there. Obviously a guy like Isaiah Stewart as well, what he offers the Detroit Pistons with his toughness, same thing, very similar to Precious, honestly. I also had Bam Adebayo as a top end, high end comp, but I had one more guy that obviously for me, I need my 90s comp, whatever. This is Corey. This is pie in the sky. Mm-hmm. This is everything absolutely has to go right. And even if everything goes right, it won't be a one-to-one comp, because I think Jayden's going to end up being a little bit bigger overall than this guy. But a guy who had a very fun 90s career, made multiple All-Star teams, brought a lot of excitement to the Northwest of the United States with his athleticism and the tandem that he created with Gary Payton. I thought of Sean Kemp, right?
Okay.
This has to be a dream scenario for him. I don't think Jayden will ever be as athletic as Sean Kemp, but just thinking about like the type of role that he could play, maybe one day he becomes like that rock solid 4 or 5 pick and roll partner with somebody, offer a ton on defense, just ferocious on, wanting to send shots into the front row of.
Hey, he takes guys off the bounce like he did Visar and puts him on a poster. You got a
Right.
little Sean Kemp at him.
Right. Yeah. Maybe he's doing that and pointing at guys as they fall to the ground. Maybe there's some of that. I don't think, this is just me personally, I don't think that ever happens. But I wanted to throw it in there because who knows?
Who knows?
Right? Who knows? What if he does become the modern day Sean Kemp and he partners with someone and he has a very fun, really fun career on both ends of the floor? It is possible. But Corey, I think overall where we're landing is we think he's going to be an interesting offensive player who we can't really project what he's going to look like in terms of his final form as an offensive player, but defensively we think he's going to be impactful from day one. And we find that there are a lot of guys in the NBA that are in the NBA for very similar reasons. And overall, we think Jayden's a really interesting player. We thank you guys as always for making us your first listen of the day. We're going to have way more fun stuff coming for you guys next week. And we're getting that much closer to the college basketball season. So there's going to be some real stuff for us to talk about in terms of live film that we're watching. And so we thank you as always, guys, for joining us. My name's Albert. He's Corey. Thanks for rocking with us.